Okay, good afternoon. Happy first day of spring, everyone. Farm to Preschool pilot programs. Thank you for being here this afternoon. I'd like everyone to please enter your name and center name in the chat so we can capture your names to provide your free CEUs. Thank you very much. Our presentation today is Farm to Preschool Training Gardening Part 2. Last year, we gave you just an introduction to gardening because most of you were just getting your gardens off the ground for the first time. And you've done such a good job with your gardens. We thought we'd expand your skills in this area. So next slide, please, Gabriel. This presentation, I just want to make sure that we say, is funded in part by the USDA Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, and this institution is an equal opportunity provider and has been fundamental and foundational in helping us get Farm to Preschool off the ground in New Mexico. Slide, please. So here's our agenda for today. We're going to cover a few housekeeping items before we get started, and then we're going to leap right into expanding your edible garden skills, talking about soil health, starting seeds, a little bit about companion planting, watering, maintenance, and then a little time for question and answer. So the first thing that I want to talk about is your receipts and invoices. We meet weekly with the Early Childhood Education and Care Department, and they've let me know they haven't seen a lot of receipts or invoices coming their way to reimburse you for any expenses related to gardening, nutrition education, or family and community engagement. This money is only available until June 14th. That is the last day to submit your final invoices and receipts for Farm to Preschool expenses. I figured that most of you hadn't started spending because it was still winter and you weren't getting anything related to gardening off the ground until the weather got a little bit warmer. But it's time to start spending. And also remember that your invoices are due and receipts are due by the 15th of each month. The Early Childhood Department is requiring that for this third and last year of funding to make sure they're able to incorporate reimbursing you in a timely manner and in a way that they can do with their existing staff. So please, 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 start spending your year through 3 budget now. And if you have any questions related to the budget at all, you can certainly reach out to me, Gabriel, or Francesca, or Alberto, who can be with us today, but you're free to reach out to him as well. So next slide, please. So we're going to start off with garden planning. So believe it or not, it's time to get your garden ready for planting. And I say believe it or not because in New Mexico, we're getting a lot of snow where I live, and it feels a little cold to get outside and get things started, but we really can do that now. Next slide, please. So in terms of planning your garden this year, so I want to acknowledge that all of you have what you need to get good gardens growing. And you can do the same thing you did last year, and that's fine. And just consider these ideas as you start implementing your garden in this new gardening year. So that requires, believe it or not, a plan, just like your action plans. So you have an established location for your gardens now. Maybe some of you are expanding and you're thinking about it. And if you are expanding your garden and just getting ready, then there are some important steps to take. So choosing a site that has enough sunlight and good airflow. Plants need sunlight and air. Vegetables and fruits need at least 6 hours of sunshine a day, so try not to locate your garden under trees or shrubs. That takes away sunlight and water, but also nutrients from your garden. Make the location convenient and plan your garden where you can easily see it and visit it. This way you can keep an eye on it and enjoy it at the same time. Make a planting plan. So making a list of all the vegetables you like to eat and some you'd like to try is a fun project. There's lots of seed catalogs, there's lots of seeds online, but you're not going to have enough time or space to grow everything. And that comes straight from experience. I buy seeds and have a big ambitious plan, and I simply don't have enough room to plant everything I want. So you're going to have to narrow down your choices. You do not have the time it takes or the space it takes to grow everything you want. Think about what grows well in New Mexico's climate. Some things you'd like to plant might require a climate different from our dry Southwest climate. And remember to think about how much time and effort you want to put into the garden. You're with the children, the little ones, every day, maybe Monday through Friday, but that's not all you're doing every day, Monday through Friday. So you want to make sure you choose things that you can budget into the amount of time you have. And then just quickly on the planting plan, think about the space each vegetable will take in the office or in the garden. There isn't enough room for all of them. So remember to think of that as you're planning your garden for this year. Roots need room and to reach water, air, and nutrients in the soil. So another reason for choosing those plants you want to plant is that if they're too close together, they compete for the things they need, like sunlight, water, and nutrients. And when you put a brand new plant or a seedling into the ground, it might look too far apart because they're small, but full-grown plants obviously are much larger. So when you're planning your garden, think of the full-grown plants in mind, because that's the space that's actually going to be needed. The next idea is deciding on planting seeds or starts. Seeds, there's almost a limitless variety of seeds you can choose from, and they're cheaper. And so you can try new things that you've been interested in trying. It takes a little bit more work, but it does work to plant seeds. You just have to allocate the time. And it also gives the little kiddos a chance to see something that's so tiny and small grow into something that has leaves and vegetables and fruits. So I want to encourage you to think about that. And then using your garden action planner in the workbook you have. So if I could ask you, Gabriel, to just jump to the next slide. Oh, sorry, jump to the next slide. Anyway, and then I'll talk quickly about the average frost dates for New Mexico. So this doesn't cover every area in New Mexico, but it does cover bands of the state that can give you a good idea when to think about putting your seeds outside or your seedlings outside. So this presentation is being recorded, and we will send it along to you once we're finished today, and you'll have this as a resource so that you can pay attention to when the last frost is, which can be anywhere from the beginning of April till the 1st of June, and when the first frost will be. That's the window you have if you're planting your garden outside to make sure that your seeds grow and you have a good harvest. And then one thing that Marla, who's in the room, brought up to me is that make sure that you know your locale, because these average frost dates are a guideline. It'll be different for your whole microclimate and your area, so to pay attention to that. Okay, next slide, please. You have an action planner to support your garden goals. So at the beginning of all this work, we shared the Farm to Preschool workbook, and in it there are worksheets you can use to help you make a plan. You have to sit down and actually work on making a plan, but when you have it, it clarifies things in your head about what exactly you want to do for your garden and for how you want to teach the little ones how to grow produce. Next slide, please. So we just took a couple pictures of everything that exists here for you. You have where you can set goals, who can help you set the goals, the kind of garden you're going to grow and what you'll need for it, and then recording your harvest. That's a fun thing to do. Look at everything we grew. We grew zucchinis, we grew tomatoes, we grew peppers. That's a good log and a history to help inform your future year efforts. Next slide, please. So besides sunlight, very important, and water, also very important, the health of your soil is really important to grow healthy, disease-resistant plants. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Next slide, please. So I'm going to encourage all of you to work with the kiddos on getting to know your soil, getting your hands in the soil, seeing what it feels like. Good soil can support healthy plant life. It's easy to dig, so you shouldn't have to take a pick to it. It's loose enough for air to reach roots, and that might seem counterintuitive because the soil doesn't seem like it has air in it, but it does, and plant roots need air to grow and thrive. Good soil can soak up and store water. It drains well. That means it doesn't just lay there in a pool. And it has plenty of decayed plant material. That means compost or decayed leaves or anything that's decayed plant matter helps improve soil texture and adds nutrients for healthy plants. So soil in good condition, which is called tilth, supports healthy plant life. You can test soil moisture by taking a handful of soil and squeezing it. If it crumbles freely and feels kind of like a wrung out sponge, it has good tilth. If it's muddy and sticks to your garden tools, like a lot of soil in New Mexico does, it's too wet. And if it's powdery or clumped together in hard clumps, that's too dry. Most soils in New Mexico are low in decayed plant matter or compost. And so that has to be added to make the soil support healthy plant life and absorb and hold moisture better. The other thing it was recommended to do is get a soil sample and have it tested to determine additional nutrients to add to your soil. And another case was for some of the places where we want a garden are in burn scars or are in burn scars, and there are chemicals and other things added to the soil that will make it, if not impossible, nearly impossible to grow a garden there. So getting a soil test is not difficult to do and will help you make the garden you want to grow the healthiest it can be. And safe for the kids. Next slide, please. So seeds or transplants, that is the question. Next slide, please. Some advantages of seeds are they're less expensive than plant starts. Some seeds can be directly seeded into your garden and can give you more plants for less money. So starts cost money, but the advantage is that they're already a plant that you can just put straight into the garden. You can get a lot more choices when you plant seeds than are offered in nurseries or farm stands where you might be buying your starts. There are earlier harvests. You're able to plant seeds earlier, for instance, in a covered raised bed or in a greenhouse, and be able to set them out right after the last frost date so that they mature and you can start harvesting earlier. Starting seeds, as I said earlier, is not hard. Starting them indoors, even in a window inside your center, allows you to gain a few weeks of precious growing time. It doesn't take a lot of specialized equipment. So in our family engagement training last month on seed starting, our pilot program in Clovis, Ashley Tackett, the director, said she didn't need a lot of specialized growing equipment. She had a heat mat, she had a light, and she was able to start hard to start seeds fairly easily. And she had a cost breakdown, but that kind of equipment you can purchase with your farm to preschool money to help you make seed starting easier. And then the final advantage is that you've grown your own transplants. When you have your own seeds that grow into starts, then you can transplant those straight into the garden yourselves, and you've grown your own, which is empowering, and it teaches children an important lesson that seeds grow into plants that can grow into food that they can try and maybe. And then I want to say, though, that transplants work well too. It isn't always an option to grow your plants from seeds. So that you can purchase them. Many of you did, and transplant those starts straight out into your garden after the last frost date. A quick couple of tips for transplanting is to water your transplants several hours before transplanting them, so they're nice and hydrated and ready for moving into a new environment. And transplant starts in the early morning or the early evening to prevent wilting. Some of our areas are pretty hot, and transplanting starts in the middle of the day it's just too hot for them. Okay, so next slide, please. We have a little fun video we recorded to share with you on making your own seed pots. So if you wanted to plant seeds and you have families that can help you do it, this is a fun family engagement event that's easy to do and with free materials, and making your own seed pots to grow the seeds that you'll put into the garden. So go ahead, Gabriel, press play.
Greetings, Farm to Preschool champions. Welcome to the step-by-step video guide for creating fun, practical, and cost-free newspaper seed pots. Thank you to Rita Condon, who shared this idea and serves as our talented hand model and newspaper seed pot folding guide. This activity is sure to be a favorite among your students and families when it's time to start seeds for your garden. To begin, take one sheet of newspaper from a local free paper or one of the single inside sheets from your local newspaper. Have a plastic card like a library card, glue stick, and a pile of large paper clips nearby. Fold your piece of newspaper in half, doing your best to line up the edges. Scrape the plastic card over the edges to make them sharp. Fold it in half again and scrape the card over the edges. Repeat this step 2 more times for a total of 4 folds. You will have a rectangle shape, as seen here. The 4th fold creates a crease at the center of your paper, which is important for the following steps. Open the top fold on one side and press it open from the center crease to make a triangular shape. You can see Rita doing that now. Scrape the card over the edges, then turn over and repeat that same step on the opposite side. Remember, paper gets thicker with each fold, so press hard when you scrape the card over the edges. Next, you're going to open the shape on each side and press flat with your card. After this step, your shape is going to look like a house. Rita's demonstrating that now. Now, fold each side of the house toward the center and press flat with your card. As you can see, you will fold toward the center twice on the right and twice on the left side of your house. After those double folds on the left and the right, you'll crease with your card, then flip the entire shape over and repeat on the other side. Way to go, Rita. This will be a newspaper seed pot in no time. At the end of this step, your shape will have a pointed end on one side and a flat end on the other. You can see that coming together now. And it has two flaps. Fold one of those flat sides over to line up with the edge of the previous folds. This will be the top of your pot. Flip over and repeat that same fold on the other side. Always remembering to crease with your card. Now grab your glue stick and glue one of the flaps to the side of the pot. Slide a large paper clip over the flap to hold it down until the glue dries, about 10 minutes. Then flip over and secure the flap on the other side of your pot. Put your fingers in the opening at the top to open your pot and flatten the bottom. Finally, fill with soil, add seeds, water, and sunlight, and soon you'll have a new baby plant. The good thing about newspaper pots is that they can be planted directly into the garden as soon as the plants are big enough. Newspaper will break down as the plants grow and add organic matter to your garden soil. Thanks so much for watching.
Thank you, Gabriel. So next slide, please. We're going to talk a little bit about watering. Very important component of your garden. Next slide, please. So plants need water to be healthy and productive. Water often enough to keep the roots moist. Roots are what uptake water and nutrients to grow the healthy plant with vegetables or fruits on it. There are three basic watering methods: hand watering, which a lot of you did with the kiddos and watering cans, soaker hoses, and drip irrigation, and sprinklers. Germinating seeds and seedlings need to stay moist all the time until they develop the root system that can bring up water from deeper in your garden soil. And developing plants, so the bigger they get, need deep, infrequent watering to encourage root growth. And then finally, cover your soil with mulch to keep water in the soil. New Mexico is a hot, high elevation, dry place. And the sun and the wind we have will evaporate the soil right out of your garden. Raised bed gardens lose moisture faster than in-ground gardens. So we need to really pay attention to watering. So as you plan your garden, think about how you will give your plants the water they need. In general, if your soil has good tilth, watering should be deep and infrequent, like 3 times a week after your plants are established. Water frequently during the hottest parts of the summer and in the early morning or in the evening when it's cooler. And then feel for moisture below the soil, the first inch or two of the soil. If it's dried out, it's time to water. Hand watering takes time. So when you're out with the kiddos, they love watering with the hose or watering can, and they should be given that opportunity. And the benefit of it is that it delivers water directly to plant roots and cuts down on waste. Drip irrigation and soaker hose save time, water, and money because it delivers water directly to the root zone where the roots are. It reduces evaporation, and you can use a timer to automatically water at regular intervals. And this is important during the summer, for instance, or during the times when your center is closed. It's not always open. So having drip irrigation on a timing system can help protect your plants from being dried out while you're gone. And you can still give the kiddos time in the garden to water and use the watering cans for supplemental water during the time when they're in the center and you're out in the garden and you're wanting to show them how to take care of what they're growing. And then finally, sprinklers can save time. You can turn them on, walk away, but that really wastes water, and water is costly and precious in New Mexico, and we lose a lot of water to evaporation that way. So you always have heard me in individual calls supporting drip irrigation. I still do. I use it in my own garden, and it does save money on my watering bill, and I can still supplementally water during hot times of the year with a watering can or a hose. Next slide, please, Gabriel. Finally, we're going to talk about ongoing garden care, the love we give our gardens to grow beautiful vegetables and fruits that we can try, we can share with our families, we can share with the kiddos, and what it takes to take care of them. So next slide, please. Gardening maintenance to think about and that you have thought about. These are just reminders and maybe ideas that you haven't given a lot to thought to, but will help you grow a healthy garden. So weeding is necessary to give plants a better chance to succeed. Mulching, which we've talked about briefly, to hold water in the soil and also suppress weeds. Thinking about pest management, I'm a fan of integrated pest management. We'll talk about that a little bit. It's a process you can use to solve pest problems and limit risks to the people in the environment. So limit the risks and exposure to, for instance, pesticides or herbicides for the kiddos. The components of integrated pest management are having healthy soil, the right spacing for mature plants, rotating crops, and companion planting. So weeds compete with your garden plants for sunlight, water, nutrients, and space. Weed seeds can stay alive for years and come to the surface when you work the soil. The easiest way to control weeds is to stop them from getting started in the first place. So get rid of all the weeds before you plant. Prepare your garden bed in advance and don't let weeds form seeds. Pull your weeds or hoe when the soil is damp. It's easier, and weeds can be hard to remove, as most of you probably know, when our soil is too dry. Throw the weeds in the trash. Some weeds can be resprout from just a little teeny tiny piece of a stem or root. Like think of morning glories or goat head thorns and tumbleweeds. They can all grow from just a teeny tiny piece of root and spread all over the place. So the next thing, mulch, straw, so not hay. Hay has seeds, straw does not. Or compost over a layer of cardboard or newspaper also helps to control weeds and hold moisture in the soil. And they break down over time, and that adds organic matter to the soil, which we said earlier is important for good soil conditions. You can use black plastic to kill weeds in an empty bed, but straw over cardboard will do the same thing, and you're not adding plastic to the environment. So all of you have probably heard me and my rants about too much plastic in the environment. And with regard to pest management, we all know that gardens have pest problems occasionally. I found tomato worms in my tomato garden last year, and it had been a while since I'd even seen one. I thought it was a butterfly pupa, and it was actually a tomato worm eating my tomatoes and all the foliage. Pesticides can cause potential harm to children, pets, birds, insects, and other life. So growing healthy plants, they need, like we said, sunlight, water, air, and nutrients. Also, rotating what you grow through your gardens can help control pests. So that's called crop rotation. Growing, spacing, and good soil management are the most important influences on your growing. So good soil tilth, growing your tomatoes in a different bed than you did the year before helps. You can choose disease-resistant varieties if you're planting starts, or you can choose seeds that have disease-resistant characteristics. You can catch problems by just checking your plants at different times of the day, which you're doing with the kiddos anyway. It's a chance to check for how healthy your plants are doing, or if there are anything like aphids or caterpillars or things that eat your plants that you haven't, that'll help you keep your eye on it. And then finally, companion planting. Many different kinds of flowers attract pest-eating insects or lure pests away from crops, and also provide nectar and food for many beneficial insects and even hummingbirds. So you can stick in calendula flowers or nasturtiums. There's lots of good resources. It's called companion planting that can help keep pests in your garden under control. Next slide, please, Gabriel. So like I said earlier, we're going to share this presentation after it's over, and we'll share the recording, and you'll be able to listen to it again and look at the seed pot video if you like. But we wanted to make sure that you have some resources for gardening. And so I've listed here seed companies: Native Seed Search, Johnny's Selected Seeds, and High Desert Seed and Garden, all sell seeds at reasonable costs that grow in our kind of climate in New Mexico. We're fortunate to have Seed to Supper growing guides available online. This is from the Cooperative Extension. They wrote a garden planting and maintenance and care guide for New Mexico, and it's called Seed to Supper, and it's written in English and Spanish, and those are linked here on this slide. About farmers or about companion planting, we have a whole section on companion planting from the Farmer's Almanac, which was excellent information. Composting, so we know that soil and good tilth has lots of decayed plant matter, and you can make your own decayed plant matter by learning how to compost, and you can use food scraps and grass clippings and leaves and all different kinds of things to create decayed plant matter to put into your gardens. There is a whole map of growing zones in New Mexico at New Mexico Plant Hardiness link. And then finally, the New Mexico State University Master Gardener program has a webinar series called Ready, Set, Grow. And those classes are free. They're available online and can give you more information about how to grow a easy, fun, beautiful garden full of a lot of varieties of different vegetables and fruits to teach children how to try different and new kinds of food and how food is grown. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Thank you. Are there any questions or comments? I wasn't able to keep my eye on the chat, but is there anything those of you with some experience would like to share about your gardening? All of you now are gardeners and you've had your own experience, and we learn from each other when we share. So is there anything anyone would like to share about your experience or other tips? Don't be shy. We're all friends here.
So I'm going to go ahead and share a couple little things that we do with ICANN. And this is something you guys can actually work with, especially if you're going to be working with parents as well. I did put it in the chat. So like with seeds and seedlings, if they're purchasing seedlings already small grown plants from say like Walmart or Albertsons or anything like that, as well as seeds, as long as it is food producing, participants can use their SNAP Ed benefits, their food stamps, to purchase those products. They can purchase seeds and they can purchase the small seedlings as well. They don't have to worry about it coming out of their own pockets. In areas, I think it's more or less going to be your more mountain range areas for the soil when it comes to mulching, keep plants or your ground moist. Keep the mulch away from the base of your plants. I know up here in our areas of Lincoln County, if you put the mulch too close to the base of the plant, it will actually attract insects such as like the little pill bugs or roly-polies, whatever you want to call them. And even though roly-polies are basically they eat decomposing matter, they will eat the base of your plant and kill your plants. And it doesn't matter how big the plant is, they will eat it and they will destroy those plants. So it's safe to keep the mulch about, I would say, a 2 to 3 inch diameter away from the base of any plant that you're going to put mulch around. Then also, you guys have probably done it in your areas, making sure you have a shade cloth is going to be very beneficial. I know here in Lincoln County, we're extremely high. Our community garden is actually sitting at 8,000 feet above sea level. So we're extremely close to the sun. And even though we have trees surrounding the community garden, we still have to put shade cloth up to keep our plants from dying. And it doesn't matter how much we water them, the sun will just roast pretty much. But other than that, keeping an eye out, like you said, for different kinds of bugs. If you need to use a pesticide, but you don't want something that's going to be poisonous, use neem oil. It's NEEM oil. It is 100% edible. It is not poisonous. It will not hurt you. It will only hurt insects, and that's it. You can actually, neem oil, you can actually ingest for yourself too, as a immune support system booster. But neem oil actually cleans off the gills and the air passages for certain insects and will kill them. It basically suffocates them. So if you have issues with insects, especially spider mites, I highly recommend neem oil. And it won't hurt the kids. That's all I got.
Okay, that was good sharing. Thank you very much, Marla. So families that get SNAP benefits can use those benefits to buy seeds that are going to be grown into food, vegetable seeds and fruit seeds, and also you can buy starts that for edible garden plants with your SNAP benefits. So that's really good to share with families. Okay, I'm going to wrap up and say thank you for attending. Please start spending your farm to preschool funding on your gardening. Now is the time to do it. All of you have budgets. All of them have been approved. Garden season is starting and it's time to spend the money. If there's something that you didn't put in your budget that you're interested in purchasing, please reach out. We're flexible, we just need to know. Please remember to submit your receipts and invoices, farm to preschool expenses only on those receipts and invoices, not mixed in with other purchases for your programs, and send them to Francesca Alexander, who's on this call, at the Early Childhood Education and Care Department. And she'll forward it on to our ECECD colleagues who will reimburse you for those expenses. I'm going to just leave it with asking Gabriel, you to share the screen again with our contact information so that people, if you want our contact information one more time, it's here. Remember that we'll have this gardening presentation saved on the Google Drive. We'll also send you the link and the recording so that you have that, but you can contact us at any time for support. So if you want to take a quick picture of this, just in case you don't have our contact information, then please go ahead and take a quick picture so that you have it handy for questions. So if there are no further questions, I hope all of you have entered your names and your center names so that we can send you a CEU for your time today. If you haven't, please do that quickly before we jump off. And thank you for your time today. It was a pleasure seeing all of you. And once again, Gabriel, you have your hand up real quick.
Yeah, and I just wanted to mention, we mentioned earlier, and then we had in the resource list, the New Mexico State University Seed to Supper gardening course book in both English and Spanish. And we spoke with the food systems coordinator who's in charge of coordinating that program at the Ideas for Cooking and Nutrition program that Marla works for. And that coordinator is going to be sending the Seed to Supper course book to all of you in both English and Spanish. And it's a wonderful comprehensive guide that goes through everything that we went into in today's presentation, and then more details around pest management, how to take care of your soil, how to make a garden plan, how to appropriately water your garden, and everything else under the sun. And so be looking out for those to come in the mail, literally within the next week or two. I think they should be arriving at your centers.
Thanks for that reminder, Gabriel. It is an excellent resource book and it's so easy to understand. It's written in plain English and has lots of good information for you. Okay, everyone, thank you very much for your time. Have a great day and let's get those gardens growing. Take care.
Thank you, Rita. Thank you, Gabriel. Thank you, everybody. See you.
Thank you.